Once upon a time in the Yoruba village of Aiyegbaju, there were two best friends, Akinde and Pelumi. They had grown up together like brothers, playing in the fields and learning the ways of the land from their elders. Aiyegbaju was a village blessed with fertile soil, and farming was the lifeblood of the community. Both Akinde and Pelumi inherited plots of land from their fathers and began their journeys as farmers. From the very beginning, Pelumi's farm thrived. His yams grew large and plentiful, his maize stood tall, and his cassava was the talk of the village. The elders would often say that Pelumi had the favor of the gods, and they would marvel at the bountiful harvest he produced year after year. Akinde, however, was not so fortunate. Despite his hard work, his crops were stunted, his yams were small, and his maize seemed to wither under the sun. No matter how much effort he put into his farm, it never yielded the harvest he desired. At first, Akinde was happy for his friend and celebrated Pelumi's success, but as the years passed, his heart grew heavy with bitterness. The more Pelumi prospered, the more Akinde felt the sting of envy. He could not understand why the gods favored Pelumi and not him. The jealousy began to consume him, turning his thoughts dark. Soon, he could not even look at Pelumi's thriving fields without feeling a deep, burning resentment. One afternoon, as Akinde walked through the village, he overheard a group of villagers talking about Pelumi. Pelumi's farm is a sight to behold. Have you seen the size of his yams this year? They are as large as a man's head. And his maize. I heard that he harvested twice as much as anyone else in the village. The gods must truly favor Pelumi. He is a good man with a pure heart. The villagers' words were like daggers in Akinde's heart. He clenched his fist, his face contorting with anger. Why should Pelumi have all the luck? What makes him so special? He muttered to himself. The seeds of jealousy had taken root, and they were growing into something dangerous. That night, Akinde lay awake in his hut, unable to sleep. His mind raced with thoughts of Pelumi's success and his own failure. He could not shake the feeling of injustice, and soon, those feelings turned into a desire for revenge. As the full moon shone brightly over the village of Aiyegbaju, casting long shadows across the fields, Akinde hatched a plan. If I cannot succeed, then neither will Pelumi, he thought to himself, his jealousy blinding him to reason. In the dead of night, Akinde crept out of his hut and made his way to Pelumi's farm. The village was silent, save for the distant hooting of an owl. Akinde's heart pounded in his chest as he approached the neatly arranged rows of crops that had brought Pelumi so much praise. He began his work of destruction, uprooting young plants, scattering seeds haphazardly, and pouring salt into the soil, knowing it would render the land barren. With each act of sabotage, Akinde felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. Let Pelumi wake up to a ruined farm and feel the pain I have felt all these years, he thought. When his malicious work was done, Akinde slipped back to his hut, believing that his actions would go unnoticed. But the gods of Aiyegbaju were always watching. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, Pelumi went to inspect his farm. He had always taken great pride in his work and was eager to see how his crops were progressing. But as he reached his fields, his heart sank. The destruction was evident, plants uprooted, seeds scattered, and the soil damaged beyond repair. Pelumi fell to his knees, his hands running through the ruined soil. Who could have done this? He whispered, his voice trembling with shock. He suspected the truth almost immediately, for who else but Akinde, his closest friend, would have access to his farm? Though hurt by the betrayal, Pelumi did not let anger consume him. Instead, he decided to confront Akinde with kindness, hoping to reach the heart of the matter. Later that day, Pelumi made his way to Akinde's hut. The village was bustling with activity, but Pelumi's thoughts were heavy as he approached the place where his friend lived. He knocked on the door, and Akinde answered, his face pale and eyes darting nervously. Akinde, my friend, may I speak with you? Forcing a smile, of course, Pelumi. What brings you here? Pelumi took a deep breath, trying to steady his emotions. Akinde, something terrible happened to my farm last night. Someone destroyed my crops, and I have reason to believe that it was you. Akinde's face drained of color, and he stammered in response. Why would you think that, Pelumi? I would never do such a thing. Pelumi looked deeply into Akinde's eyes, searching for the truth. I have known you all my life, Akinde. I can see the guilt in your eyes. Please, tell me why you would do this. Unable to bear the weight of his lies any longer, Akinde's shoulders slumped, and tears welled up in his eyes. He turned away, ashamed. It is true, Pelumi. I did it. I was blinded by jealousy. I could not stand to see you succeed while I struggled. The bitterness consumed me, and I did something terrible. Pelumi placed a hand on Akinde's shoulder, his voice filled with compassion. Jealousy is a poison, my friend. It clouds the mind and darkens the heart. We have always been like brothers. Why did you not come to me with your struggles? I would have shared my fortune with you. Akinde broke down, weeping openly. He realized the depth of his folly and the purity of Pelumi's heart. The jealousy that had once consumed him now filled him with regret and sorrow. But the gods of Aiyegbaju had not ignored Akinde's treachery. That night, as Akinde lay in bed, he was visited by a terrifying vision. He found himself in the midst of a vast, barren wasteland, the earth cracked and lifeless under his feet. The sky above was dark and stormy, and the air was thick with the sound of wailing. A figure appeared before him, a god of the land, with skin the color of rich soil and eyes that glowed like embers. Akinde, your jealousy has poisoned not only your heart but the very land you sought to defile. You have betrayed your friend and disrespected the gift of the gods. Now, you must face the consequences. Akinde fell to his knees, trembling with fear. Please, Great One, forgive me. I was foolish and weak. I have wronged Pelumi and dishonored the land. I beg for mercy. The god's voice was stern but not without a hint of compassion. Your actions have angered the gods, but Pelumi's kindness and willingness to forgive have spared you from our full wrath. However, you must make amends for your deeds. Your farm shall remain barren until you have restored what you have taken from Pelumi. With that, the vision faded, and Akinde awoke, drenched in sweat and filled with dread. The gods had spoken, and their judgment was clear. The next day, Akinde went to Pelumi with a heart full of repentance. Pelumi, I have wronged you in ways that words cannot express. The gods have shown me the error of my ways, and I am here to make amends. Please, let me help you restore your farm and share in the work of the land. Pelumi, ever kind-hearted, embraced Akinde. You are my brother, Akinde. Together, we will rebuild what was lost. The land is generous, and with time, it will forgive you as I have. And so, with Pelumi's guidance, Akinde learned new farming techniques and rituals to appease the gods. They worked side by side, day after day, restoring Pelumi's farm to its former glory. In time, Akinde's own farm began to flourish as well, though it required great effort and patience. The villagers of Aiyegbaju watched in awe as the two friends, once divided by jealousy, became closer than ever before. Akinde's transformation was the talk of the village, and the elders praised Pelumi for his wisdom and compassion. A year later, during the annual Yam Festival, the village gathered to celebrate the harvest. Akinde and Pelumi stood side by side, their friendship stronger than ever. As the drummers played and the villagers danced, the elders called for a moment of silence. Today, we celebrate not just a new Yam Festival but also the blessings of repentance and forgiveness. The village keeps flourishing, so also the friendship between Akinde and Pelumi.